Welcome to Conquering Your Clownfish, a podcast dedicated to transforming disabilities into special abilities. I'm your host, Brady Murray. Welcome to the Conquering Your Clownfish podcast. I'm honored to introduce our guest today, Eileen Lamb. Eileen is the author of 3 books, All Across the Spectrum, Be the One, and Yet Here You Are. She is also the founder of the Autism Cafe. She's a photographer, podcast host, and the director of social media at Autism Speaks. Born in France, Eileen now lives in Austin, Texas with her 2 sons, Charlie and Jude, and their sister, Billy. On her blog, she shares the ups and downs of raising 2 children with autism, one with profound autism, while being on the autism spectrum herself. Eileen, what a pleasure it is to be able to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So I would love to hear a little more about your personal story, your personal background. Quite unique having grown up in France and then transitioning to the United States. Would love to start there if you're open to it.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in France, which you'll hear because of my accent.
I love it.
You know, I've always loved the US. It's funny because I feel like a lot of people in the US love France. You know, you were just sharing with me how you'd love to go to France one day. And to me, I guess growing up and seeing America in movies, like the yellow school bus and all of that, it was always like a dream. You know, it's the little things that to you, like, it's just everyday life, right? But to us in France, we don't have those yellow buses and we don't prom at the end of the year. It looks amazing. You know, to me, growing up, it was just a dream. And when I was 21, there was pretty much only one way I could live in the US legally, and that was to be an au pair, which is like a nanny for those who are not familiar. So I came to Austin to be an au pair, met my husband, and never left. That's the short story.
Wow. That is a great story. Okay, so this is really, really interesting. So growing up in France, obviously it sounds like you had a great childhood and things were good there. Came to the United States to be able to be an au pair, which is like a nanny. I actually just learned that not too long ago, which sounds like a really cool thing. But then you meet your husband and you stay here. So amazing. Tell me how the experience has been in the United States thus far.
I mean, amazing. That's why I'm still here and I didn't go back to France, you know. Honestly, like as soon as I stepped out of the plane, I don't know, I felt home. I didn't have the best experience living in France. It's hard to explain, but like just walking in France, if someone was to talk to me, I knew it wasn't going to be positive. There's a lot of calling and I didn't feel very safe as a woman walking the streets in France. But as soon as I came to the US, I don't know, everyone was so friendly. Like people were talking to me, but they were saying hi to me, which to me at first was, whoa, okay. It's like, is that a trick? Are they really just saying hi because they're being nice? Like they don't want anything from me, you know? And I don't know if that's just the south of, the United States. I mean, Austin, Texas, and, it's known to be a very friendly city. And that's definitely been the case for me. And yeah, I just felt at home and accepted. And I don't know, it's light to live here, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I would say that by and large throughout the different states that I've visited, including Texas, is the case. People are good people. And I think that anywhere that you are, you can find wonderful, wonderful people. So thanks for sharing that. I'd love to talk more on your work that you're doing within the autism community. And so can you share with me about your own personal journey being in the autism community and then share how that's inspired the work that you're doing today?
Yeah, I have so many connections to autism. It started with my son, Charlie, who's 11 now. He was diagnosed with autism when he was not even 2 years old. He was 22 months old. So that was my introduction to to autism. He had a regression, stopped talking. He would just line up his little toy cars all day long and wasn't interacting with us. And, we just knew something was not typical. And we got the diagnosis at 22 months old. And, he's 11 now. He's still nonverbal, a lot of challenging behaviors. He has what they call level 3 severe autism. Yeah, that was my introduction. I was a first-time mom. I didn't expect to be raising a child with a severe disability, but it happened. And through Charlie, I came to find out that I also had autism, level 1. I was diagnosed with level 1 autism when I was 20, 25, 26.
Wow.
And it was kind of eye-opening, life-changing, to be honest. And that wouldn't have happened if my son hadn't been diagnosed with autism. And then a few years later, my youngest son was also diagnosed with level 1 autism. And so, like I said, autism is everywhere in my life. And that, inspired me to share on social media, to find people who can relate, to help them feel less alone, to help me to find that sense of community. And yeah, that's what started it all. And I named my blog, social media platforms, the Autism Cafe. It's kind of like a wink to France, a lot of cafe in France where I would go to with my friends to just chat about everything and nothing.
Eileen, if we could go back to the time when you received your own diagnosis, and so obviously you're managing through those feelings and those emotions for your son and going down this autism journey. But through that is how you found about your own diagnosis. Can you share about that experience? Was that a time when like dots seemed to connect and you said, oh, this makes a lot more sense? Or was this more of an emotional, traumatic type of experience? Can you share more about that experience?
Yeah, it was a little bit of everything. It started with when my mom, who lives in France, reacted to Charlie's diagnosis by saying, well, he can't be autistic. You were the exact same way as a child, except you talked a lot. And I was like, well, I mean, I know the diagnosis for Charlie is right. Like there was no doubt. So, it kind of like put the seeds in my head. And then because I started posting about autism on social media, all of the ads about autism flooded me. And that's when I learned about high functioning autism. And, I took some of this online diagnosis test that said that I did have autism, but that was just an online test. So, it kind of like, again, got me thinking, but I still didn't think I really had autism because an internet test told me I had autism, right?
Right.
But after a couple of years of this, I decided to find definite answers. So I went through a therapeutic assessment. And it's a very long process, dozens of hours with a psychologist. And, you tell them what you're struggling with. And at the end, they tell you why you're struggling with what you're struggling with. And, autism was still in the back of my head. Of course, I was thinking that could be the answer, but I honestly didn't know because there are so many things that can mimic autism, ADHD, social anxiety. But I really wanted those answers for myself. And yeah, it was a relief in a way. Like all of the things I struggled with, it wasn't my fault anymore, if that makes sense. I guess it taught me to be kinder, helped me be kinder to myself for the things I struggle with that, other people don't.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense there. I am curious about the conversation that you had with your mom when you received your diagnosis.
You know what? She came around so quickly once I explained that, autism is a spectrum and all of that. And then she started feeling so much better about herself too. She was like, oh, so like I tried this, that never worked with you. And, it wasn't my fault as a mom. So it also helped her like be kinder to herself that she couldn't help me through some, very difficult things. Like, there were times when I wouldn't go to school for like a month at a time because the anxiety and all of that was just too much. She spent years trying to teach me how to socialize. She would give me little like social exercises to go like buy a baguette, in
Mhm.
France,
Yep.
obviously. Say hi and thank you and please. And it just wouldn't click with me. And she was very hard on herself because,
Yeah.
I think in France, like people put a lot of emphasis on being polite and
Mm.
doing these things. And it just wouldn't click with me, like the eye contact, all of that. I mean, it did click just late. And yeah, I think it helped her too in the end that I
That's,
got diagnosis.
I think that that is a beautiful thing if you think about it, that with knowledge comes the ability to be able to have good inspiration, right? So good inspiration comes from good information. And you think of just that trial that you obviously had to face as a child and in growing up, not having that diagnosis, but equally so for your mom. That was something that she probably carried a lot on her shoulders. And that's a beautiful thing. I'm just trying to envision how that was like that weight was relieved and lifted from her shoulders upon receiving that diagnosis together, and that together you guys could go down this journey together with that information and that knowledge that you have. So beautiful story. Thanks for sharing that. So since receiving this diagnosis, you have really got involved in the autism community. One particular way was with starting the Autism Cafe. Could you share about that experience?
Yeah, I started the Autism Cafe. It's funny because I never really wanted to at first, but I started sharing Charlie's, what I was going through with Charlie because honestly, kind of because of my mom's comment about, you can be autistic, you're the exact same way. And I was like, well, French people, there definitely needs to be more awareness there. So I started sharing to, kind of keep my family and friends updated in France. And it was just on my private Facebook page. So no one had access to it. But one day I wrote something that really resonated with my Facebook friends, and someone asked me to make it public so they could share it. And little did you know that it went viral. And that was the beginning of the Autism Cafe. I just started connecting with some of those people who commented on my post, and then I met another post, more people, and it kind of snowballed from there. But at first, I was really just writing and sharing for family and friends, but it kept growing, and now I have over 200,000 followers on Instagram, 80 something on Facebook and TikTok, and yeah, it's nice for the community aspect of it. Social media, double-edged sword, a lot of good things. Sometimes it's hard to leave the negative and to only keep the positive, but I try to as much as possible.
Do you recall what it was that you posted, that first post that you made public?
Yeah, it was about how, at the time, yeah, Charlie was a little older than 2, and I think I was talking about, because a lot of people think about Rain Man when you say autism, which apparently Rain Man didn't even have autism in the
Right.
movie. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, I was just trying to break some of those stereotypes, and I was sharing, a picture of Charlie and how despite his diagnosis, he was still very, smart and sweet. And I was trying to look beyond, the diagnosis.
Beautiful. Tell me more about the Autism Cafe, the goal of the Autism Cafe. We understand how it started, but we'd love to learn more about just the goal and what you see the future of the Autism Cafe being.
I think it's kind of evolved throughout the years. Now my priority is to raise awareness of the, severe side of the spectrum, just because I feel like there are so many great self-advocates, who have the ability to advocate and share their autism journeys. But, you know, kids like mine, Charlie, they can't do it themselves. They need their caregivers to do it because their autism is too severe, too profound. And the services are hard to get, when you have a child with such severe behaviors. And I'm trying to share the reality of autism. You know, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. I mean, of course, we need to accept autistic people, but I also want people to see the hard side of it, you know, like the self-injurious behaviors, the aggression, pica, which is, you know, the urge of putting non-edible items in your mouth. All of these behaviors that can be life-threatening that I feel like we don't talk about enough. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Because I think if we keep talking about these things, we'll get more resources, and it will also help other caregivers feel less alone. Because there was a time when I felt very lonely on social media because, you know, I was interacting with other autism families, but their struggles were so different from mine. You know, so finding those people who experience the same challenges, I think, is very important. You got to find your community, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, so I work with an amazing individual named Jenny, and Jenny is the director of Caring Tide, our company that does disability planning for families entrusted with a loved one with a disability. Jenny's son, Jackson, actually is on the autism spectrum as well, and there's a phrase that she says that I just think resonates really well, where she says, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And that really that spectrum, it is a spectrum, and it is something that is very, very distinct and different in all aspects of it. And that is quite a difficult journey. Even when you meet with somebody that has autism, their experience might be very, very different. In fact, night and day different than your own experience. So it's hard to find that sense of community.
Oh, yeah, totally. And I think that's really important for people to remember.
Yeah, definitely. So you do work professionally as well with Autism Speaks. You manage their social media. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. I'm the director of social media at Autism Speaks.
Amazing. I mean, this is a big platform. You obviously have your own platform, which is huge, but this is also a very, very big platform as well. So what was it that you would say is your superpower with social media? What is it that makes it so unique and so special with that skill set?
I think, you know, a lot of social media is kind of fabricated in a way, and you kind of lose the honesty and rawness of it. And I try in everything I create to stay true to myself and, you know, real. I never want people to go like on my page and feel like, you know, it's something not real, and I want them to feel connected, and that, you know, I get it. And yeah, I think that's what I do. I do differently than most people out there on social media. And yeah, we need that. We need to connect. We need to be raw and real and honest about our emotions and our struggles. I don't know if you've heard the expression, but you know what you see on social media, it's just don't compare your behind the scenes to someone's highlight reel, right?
Yeah.
And I want to post a lot of behind the scenes and not just highlight reels on my platforms to not make people feel bad.
Well, I think that truly is your superpower. That is your ability. That is a superpower to be very authentic, to be yourself, and to be able to articulate that in words and in ways of creating content that just resonates with people. And hence why you're having the success that you're having. As you look at the autism community as a whole, it's come a long ways. I mean, there's tremendous progress that has been made, great resources that are being developed and provided, but yet there's still so much lacking. If you could wave your magic wand and be able to adjust or be able to provide, whether that's resources, et cetera, what would that be? Where do you feel like the resources or the support is lacking the most right now?
Definitely for children and adults with severe autism. I feel like they need the support the most, and it's the hardest to get, especially because those kids become adults and it's harder to get resources for adults. I got lucky in my bad luck that my son bypassed a 25-year waiting list for services in Texas, but only because he was at risk of being institutionalized. It was a very long process to get that that waiver. And if he hadn't been so severe, it would be an extra 15 years. He's already been on the waiting list for 10 years. So if I could, have one wish, that would be it. Make services not so hard to get. Support caregivers, support like autistic children and adults who have like really difficult challenges. There's not enough out there.
Yeah, that's a deep passion for me as well. We work with families all over the country and doing the disability planning for them. And every state is different. And as you had shared, in Texas, it's a 25-year wait to be able to get on the waiver system. Utah is very similar, actually, very difficult to be able to get on that waiver system. And what a blessing that waiver system is for those families that are on it. But man, it just breaks my heart to see families that truly would benefit. It would be life-changing if they could be on that waiver system, yet it's still a multiple decade year or a decade wait to be able to do so. That reminds me of something that I'd love to visit with you about. As we work with families throughout the nation, oftentimes families answer this question very much the same way. And when we ask families about what their biggest fears are, looking forward into the future, they answer it the same way you did. And you said, what happens when I'm gone?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more about the emotion that comes with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the question, right? You don't have an answer to. Like, my son has so many needs, and honestly, like, it's difficult. And I do it because I'm his mom and I love him, but it's just, I can't picture anybody else but me, like, being his full-time caregiver. I mean, his dad, I don't know what will happen to him when I'm not around, and hopefully it's in a long time. But as a parent of a child with such severe challenges, you have to ask yourself that question. And it's not easy to think about, and there was a time when I was thinking that, when he was like 4 or 5, like, oh, well, maybe it will get better. Maybe I'll be independent. And, now that he's 11 and things are only getting harder, like, I've kind of come to terms with the idea that he'll need 24/7 support for the rest of his life, and I might not be able to provide that. So yeah, it's a hard question.
Yeah, there's literally millions of families that are asking themselves that question right now in our country. And that you're right. It is something that as a mother, you are caring for your child as their mother, and that you have a sense of empathy and a love, and you know them better than anybody else knows them and how to be able to help them. And that is a big fear. That is a big weight that families in our country are facing right now as to who will do this when I'm gone, and ultimately what will happen to my child when I'm no longer to do this anymore. And so that is that's a deep passion for me personally to be able to help those families to answer that question, because that is a tremendous need right now. I want to tell you something that I often feel when I do a podcast on this particular platform, and that is that individuals, we all, in essence, are entrusted with life experiences. And some of these experiences we choose for ourselves, and other experiences life chooses for us. And in this circumstance, you've been entrusted with a beautiful son, in fact, beautiful children that have unique experiences that they're giving you. And I just want to commend you for being so diligent and so committed to leaning into these experiences, because there's no doubt you are blessing the lives of your children, but you are blessing the lives of many, many people who are facing the same journey. You're a voice for them. You're an example for them. You're hope. You represent hope. And I just want to tell you that. I think you knew that, but I think it's important that you're reminded of that amazing work that you're doing.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I appreciate the work that you're doing in this community. It's been amazing to be able to have you as a guest on our show today. And in closing, any final comments or words that you'd like to give to the listeners?
I'll just remind people of what you reminded them. If you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism, and take what you read on social media with a grain of salt, and don't generalize what you read, because really all of those kiddos with autism and adults, they're different. They have different needs, different strengths, different, challenges, and you got to learn every individual with autism.
Most definitely. That's wonderful counsel. Great advice, Eileen. Thank you again for the work that you're doing, and we really appreciate you being a guest on the show today.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conquering Your Clownfish. If you liked what we discussed on the podcast today and want to continue the conversation, please visit us at conqueringyourclownfish.com. And please don't forget to subscribe.